Welcome to Moments with Mindleaps. It's another Friday afternoon. I'm Rebecca Davis, the Executive Director of Mindleaps. And as many of you know, these are my favorite afternoons these days. I get the chance to speak with artists and creatives and researchers and people around the world that are fighting for causes and are using the arts to really bring power to the voices that need power and really using the platforms that we have to create change. So I couldn't be happier today or more fortunate today to have our very special guest joining us, which is Royce Zackery. So many of you know Royce, and I see people joining from our different countries, and you've all worked with Royce, and you know how wonderful he is as a person. And Royce has an extensive dance career, from Atlanta to Philadelphia to New York to Washington, D.C., kind of doing the whole East Coast of America. And danced with Philadelphia and now runs the dance department at Howard University. And he's been a longtime friend and artist with me and with Mindleaps. And we've had the chance to work together on a few different occasions, including in Rwanda, where he was with us last year, 2 years ago in 2018, for the Ubuntu International Arts Festival, where he set a beautiful piece on the dancers that Mindleaps was working with from different countries across Africa. So he's going to be joining with us shortly. I think we're still waiting for him to log in. Oh, yes, I see. Royce has joined. Now we just need him to make the request. Oh, great. There we go. Okay. But that's a little bit too soon for Royce to join because I could talk about his credentials probably for the entire live series, probably even like before he joins. Hi, Royce. How are you?
Fine, and you, Rebecca, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining
Good.
us. I've been listing off the wonderful credentials and going up the coast from Atlanta all the way up, hitting your career path along the way. And I want to thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, particularly at a time when a lot needs to be talked about, a lot needs to be thought about, a lot needs to be said. And I
Yeah.
couldn't be more fortunate to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. It's great to see you, always.
Great to see you too, and you always make me smile. I can't believe 2 years ago we were in Rwanda going to Innocent's wedding together.
That's right. And that is a Rwandan like wedding is an experience. Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a life experience, yeah. Yeah. That was
Well,
beautiful.
and today the world is in a very different place, and maybe
Hmm.
as some of the things that we were chatting about back and forth, maybe this is finally the moment that we see the change that we've been fighting for and waiting for and somehow not getting to fast enough. And I know you've taught me a lot in the time that you've come into my life and the companies that I've been a part of with you in terms of how we need to lift up Black lives and how we need to make us understand that our world is not justice and we are not role models unless we see unity and harmony and equality in our own country. And you've shared a lot of that and you've fought a lot of that fight. And I wonder kind of what's going through your mind these days. I don't even know if it's realistic to ask you to articulate a few thoughts when there's so much that needs to be said.
I think that was well said, actually. Yeah, like to articulate everything that's going on. Um, One of the things I want to say is that um, there's so many. I think there are a lot of people who still misunderstand what when they say hashtag Black Lives Matters means. There are quite a few people who still think that we are the phrase is excluding other people who are obviously suffering injustices within our country and also with around the world, just the way that Hispanics and Latino descents and other people of other races and cultures are being demonized like within the country. And that's not the whole point of it at all. So I just really want to say that the point is just to bring light of the inequalities, and through police brutality, which normally a black person ends up dead, right? Within that construct, and then the fact that the inequality needs to change, and needs to be changed from systematically, right? Systematic racism, and so how do we tackle that? To eventually make all lives better, and that's the whole point of it. Like, so I hear people say, no, all lives matter, then to me, that, in my opinion, that we really haven't taken the time to really understand where it's coming from. Like, it's like, I want to give the examples, like, if there is a cancer drive, or a cancer walk, or a marathon, you're not gonna and you're down, fighting for research. I don't think a whole bunch of people are going to come back and say other diseases matter too, blah
Right.
blah blah. Like, you
Right.
understand? You're not going to say other diseases matter too. Of course, other diseases matter. That's a given. You know what I mean? And I don't even know. I'm not even sure. That's on top of my head. I'm not even sure if that's even a good enough example to understand what this is like. Is really about. It's really about the inequality of all people. Again, like in the looting. Okay, I personally don't agree with looting, especially with you know, one, let's say, I mean, let's be realistic. The country was founded on looting, some on a particular, in a particular way of looking at it, and then also the politicians, on an intellectual level, right, on a different level, like behind the scenes, still loot in the country as well, stealing from the masses of people, right, underneath. So I mean, and do I agree with it? No, but then if you look at, like, past history, it has gotten to that point in so many different instances. Like, what one of the last instances is what the civil rights movement, and when those laws were passed, that actually happened after looting, right after what King passed away. Then there was more looting, and then they passed particular laws. And there's so many more instances. Um,
I
and
like
it's
I
interesting.
uh,
Yeah,
I mean, I
go
think
ahead.
what you say, or one of the many things you've just said, is you it requires systematic change. And I think
Yeah,
one thing that strikes me as something that's hard for me to understand is, like, we live in the United States. Like, we're very fortunate to live in this country.
yeah.
So why can't this country, with all of the talent, all of the resources, all of the economic strength, all of the intellectual power, why can't we solve this problem? Like, it's just inexcusable that the United States can't be the role model on justice around the world. And I think some of the things you're saying is right, is because it's too easy for people to say my voice has been heard, I added the hashtag. Like,
Hmm.
nothing ever worked by people just saying a phrase. If actions don't
Right.
change, if systems don't
Hmm.
change, if political movements don't change, we're just
Hmm.
pretending that it's better in our lifetime. I mean,
Right.
and like, you've seen the
Right.
experience of Rwanda, right? And it's
Mhm.
so it's so clear in the case of Rwanda. Like, if you want equality, everything has to change, from the
Right.
education system to the political leadership to the way social media is used to the way
Hmm.
families talk to each other to the way people gather. And then it
Hmm.
changes and it works and you
Hmm.
have peace and security. So
Right.
why can't, like, I don't understand why our country still can't do that.
I don't. Yeah. There's so many. Again, it's so layered, and there's so many different ways to look at and answer that, and like, and break all of that stuff down. Like, for instance, like, just going back to, like, when you say that it's not enough to to recognize it, and then, right, oh yeah, I stand with Black Lives Matter. I stand, with the underprivileged. I stand. Okay, so then that goes into the what is that Latin phrase? The Latin phrase of knowledge is power, right? Right. So the Latin phrase knowledge is power. All right. Okay. Okay, part of me, okay, yeah, part of me has issue with that phrase because that's not the end of it, and there are many layers like in between it, because there's also like then there's the commitment, and then once you have that knowledge, what are you committed to doing with that knowledge, right? So it
Right.
gives you more. Okay, so the knowledge gives you more confidence. The knowledge gives you more information. So when you have this information and you have this understanding, what are you doing with it? So I don't think the knowledge, necessarily gives you power. It gives you understanding. It gives you it gives you insight. But then there is then there's the responsibility of you, the human being, or we as the society who see certain things. So that means you understand this is not right. This is wrong. Now you have that. Now you understand those things. So now what are you doing with that understanding? And so, and that's where I think a lot of people don't make the extra push. Like you say, oh, okay, I get it. I understand it. So you know what? I get it. Click. I get it. Click. I get it. Click. Oh yeah, I get it. But now that you get it, what are you doing to change it? Now that you understand there is inequality, there is a level of clout or that you are able to move on a certain level, on certain things, certain class, or certain things that we are not able to, rooms that we are not able to step into, right? To make those changes. I mean, one way we can do is, what is some of the things we can do? I guess vote, right? We can make these changes, vote. Again, it has to get to that point, systemic, like inside of those rooms, inside of those buildings, in those offices. That's where the stuff has to happen. We can loot, we can walk, we can march, we can do all those things. It's great. Our voices are being heard, right? Just like you press the button, the voice is being heard when you say, "Oh, I recognize that you understand. I hear you." But again, you can yell, yell, yell. But again, we have to take it, like you said, take it a step further and get into those rooms and change
Yeah.
certain things that way. The inequality from the inside. Yeah.
I know that like both you and I like to quote people. So
Yeah, yeah,
one of
yeah,
my favorite quotes that I know we talked about, I think when you were in Rwanda, is Don Cheadle's quote when he was talking about the situation in Darfur. And
yeah.
somebody asked him like Mr. Cheadle, what should I do to help the cause in Darfur? And his response was, you're supposed to ask yourself that, and you need to find
Mhm.
your answer to that. And if we're not at a point in our country yet where each of us as individuals can ask ourselves, what is the thing I'm going to do? And I should have the answer to that, then I don't think we've actually changed the way we think yet. Because if we have
Right.
those answers, then we are thinking differently. And that's actually how the change is going to happen. When we think differently, we don't just like and post.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
the other
agreed.
thing you say, Royce, like, COVID is happening in our country, COVID is happening around the world. And we didn't say, like, oh, look, now we know that COVID is happening. So that's good, right? Or
Yeah.
let's do
Hmm.
awareness campaigns about COVID. Look, the whole political system changed. Money moved towards the cause.
Hmm.
Organizations got set up to go into the field and help people. Like
Right.
everything moved. And that's why the world is slowly fighting this pandemic.
Yes.
But so why don't we do the same when it's a social justice issues? Like we know that the countries are
Hmm.
capable of this and we as people
Hmm.
are. It should not be that difficult, and yet still we see this like resistance.
Right. And I mean it really is. It's unconstitutional. Like if you're gonna have when you have I guess politicians and things, getting back to to being in those rooms, when you have politicians who understand and really can recognize the injustices that are happening, and it's unconstitutional for them not to be doing the things that they are actually put in the office to do to make these changes happen. So
Yeah,
what
it's
is
their
the
job
why
description.
are you there? What is the point of you being there? That's the whole point. And we know the law. We know what these things are. But again, you understand it, you see it, you hear it, but you still have the shutters on because you don't want to address it. Why? Because then it's gonna be it's an uncomfortable, it's long, it's an exhausting fight.
Right.
right? And you're not going to be popular. You really are. And so and then that's a whole, we could be on here like, for a long time, definitely talking about like, all those things. So,
I,
um,
Royce, speak
yeah,
to us, like, because one of the reasons why I respect you so much is that I've heard you, and I've seen you, and you've even done it for Mindleaps. You've used your creative voice to raise this issue before, and you've used it in very powerful ways. Tell us, like, how as an artist can we amplify voices? How can we use the art form to drive the change that we want?
I think that artists are brilliant. I think it's brilliant people, and maybe I'm being biased right now, but yeah, but artists a little bit are brilliant, and a lot of times creativity, like the people who are really extremely creative, there's this usually a backstory behind that creativity, and they just happen to have that use the arts as a vessel, for wherever that those things are that happen to them, or just speak on certain things, and they need to bring it out. And I think creativity brings the masses together. It's one of the ways
Right.
that you can bring people of all walks of life into the same room, into the same space, into the same video, to actually watch, and then to take in what is actually, the message that's being given, and without the physical backlash,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
The safe space.
when you go, like, exactly, like for instance, when you go to a concert, right? And I think a lot of my mentors say, they say that you have a responsibility as someone who produces work, as someone who,
Right.
what are you saying with your work,
Right.
right?
Right.
What is your voice? What legacies are you leaving? Who are you trying to touch? Why are you doing what you're doing beyond a superficial level? Like, there has to be something beneath that thing that, oh, I just love it. No, that's not good enough, right?
Right.
Because you are speaking. You have been granted this voice to speak to the masses, about so many things, and you're able to touch people in so many things, to open their eyes to it, like, oh, a different view, what I mean, viewpoint. And I think we as artists, who understand that, really, really, really take the time to do our homework and do the research, and then to put these things in a way that your emotions take over, right? Versus the blockage of the voices, when you just have to sit there and you listen, you see with your ears and listen with your eyes, and and the opposite way of doing it. So we have the space to make these changes, and to put the work out there for people to see. And again, there's so many people doing it, and Facebook, and YouTube, and I think also, and also in this time during COVID, we talked a little bit about this. It has done something else as well. It's kind of all, I think, giving people a chance to self-reflect, just like to spend a lot of time, like, with themselves. You know what I mean? With
The
themselves, and
opposite of our
then,
culture.
right, the opposite of, right, of the culture, and then also, what are you doing with that time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you spend time with yourself, are you educating yourself? And then, especially like with all of these things, like, there's just so many books, and so many tutorials, so many, I want to use Netflix as a thing. There's so many things on Netflix. There's just so many ways that
The information's
we,
there.
as information, to really truly, educate, ourselves. There's, what is that, the PBS special, if you don't know, like, what can you do, like, on your own, like you say, we
Yeah.
have to do the research, right? So there's, I just have a list, what is the PBS special with, Slavery by Another Name, the Racial Wealth Gap, um, uh, uh, 13th, You know what I mean? So those are just three, like, that I just, off the top of my head, that I just wrote down. The post-traumatic syndrome. You know what I mean? That's a really, really good book. So there are a lot of ways to really, really like get yourself invested into on a deeper level of what's happening, and then now you take that next step forward. Because it's not about really asking me, like you said before, it's not about asking me what we can do. You have to ask yourself. So if you're not asking yourself,
Yeah.
then you're coming to me on a superficial level, trying to stroke your own ego.
Yeah,
And
if
that's the
you
way I
have to
look at
be
it.
told how to be just and tolerant of other people, then I don't think you're
Hmm.
actually just and tolerant of other people.
No,
And that's
right.
like, from the work with Mindleaps, that's what we try to instill in kids who might not have had that supportive environment growing up, to help them
Hmm.
develop, that sense of those principles, right?
Hmm.
Which again is why I keep pondering why why we don't succeed at that sometimes here. But I wanna remind you of a moment that we had together in Rwanda when you came and said this beautiful piece on our trainers, on our
Okay.
young dancers from different African countries, and your piece was about race relations in the United States. And I remember you sitting there and explaining the issue of our country to these African kids, and
Yeah.
they they came to me afterwards, which I think I told you, but if not, I'm telling you now.
Okay.
They came to me afterwards and they said, but we thought everything was perfect in the United States.
Wow. No, you didn't tell me that.
And so like that's the reputation that as Americans we have around the world. And I feel like we have to live up to that. If our
Yeah.
kids see us as role models, they should see us as role models because we do the right things. Um,
Right. Exactly.
and I think
Yeah.
that like you brought that learning moment to Mindleaps, but also to our
Mm.
kids. But it also was this recognition again of something you touched on today, which is the responsibility we have. We are supposed to be able to demonstrate these values to ourselves and to the world.
Hmm.
And if we're
Right.
falling short, we don't have time to, like, we're already too late. So
Mm.
the change has to happen like yesterday. And so
Hmm.
anything that can happen to inspire each person to ask himself or herself, what am I going to do to think
Hmm.
differently and to act differently, has to just have every single possible life, energy, artist, creativity,
Right.
power, politician
Hmm.
behind it.
Right.
Because
Hmm.
the kids
Right.
are looking at us.
Yeah, they are. And I was a friend of mine said, like and then everyone can't go. He said something to the effect that I can't quote him like exactly, but he said something, and everyone won't be able to move at 100 miles an hour, and no one's asking everyone to move at 100 miles an hour. You can stay at a steady 40 mile an hour pace. Within your community or whichever realm of this that you as an individual want to bring awareness and then actually do something about it. And I said, and he was, right about that. And it's really interesting. When the riots, because I'm in DC, so when when everything started happening here, just a little bit of background, I guess on my family. My father's side of the family. My father has six brothers and four sisters. And my father's first job, he picked cotton actually. So he was a cotton picker, and he made $2 a day. $2 a day, and I remember him telling me this story. So it was him and his brothers, and they would get out there, at 6 in the morning, and then they work all the way until sundown, and that was like his childhood, and like you know. So it's not. So that thing is like that's my father, right? Not my great grandfather,
Yeah,
not.
that's not the
Yes,
history
right.
textbook. Yeah.
No, right, exactly. It's really that close. And my uncles, and the first thing they said to me is like, "Stay home." He said, "Stay home." Like we've, he's my uncle's like, "I'm 75, so that's three generations, of that fight of these things, or watching the looting, watching this, and watching people getting killed, things like that. We have to figure. He's like, I understand it. I get it. And again, like, there have been so many changes, so many things that do happen in that particular way with the looting. He gets that, but he said, but also we're still where we are, and it's another circle. So that step or that level is not deep enough. It's not close enough to the foundation of the problem.
Right. Right.
So Roy,
Right.
stay home. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I was like, wow, and that really, made me think about, when, like, the wisdom behind it, or everything that they have seen and walked through, how many riots they've gone through, how many protests they've gone through, how many, you know what I mean? Like, and how many times they tried to, change the system, or how many people have almost made the step, in the right direction, leaders, and make the step in the right direction to try to get underneath that system, and then are taken out.
Yeah.
Taken out, whether they're taken out, physically, or taken out, in a legal manner, to where they have no voice, no anything. And even, well, that's COVID. That's another thing, a whole other thing. How they are taking, doctors out in that particular way. But we don't have time to talk about that. So. And so that was one of the things he said. So we have to, tackle it a different way. But I get it. The top will blow off at some point, and people will get physical. But then we have to, someone else said, stay home, mobilize, and then figure out how to attack the system from within, on the ground floor, not the surface level. So,
And
yeah.
that's the way we've always seen change happen in the world. I mean, when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about like fighting poverty, or now when we're talking about fighting
Yeah.
COVID, I mean, those operations and those shifts change systems, change people, change countries, and change the world
Yes.
when they start at the ground level.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to go
Mm-hmm.
up. It can't just stay there. It has to go all the way up.
Right. Right.
But I think
Mm-hmm.
what you've said to us today is something that needs to be said. But the power of your words for me personally is that we don't now leave and say, okay, great, we talked about it today. Check. Instead, what we have
Right.
to do is take now this knowledge that's given us, as you say, like insight, and then we
Mm-hmm.
figure out how we make that action.
Right. Individually. Yeah, definitely.
Royce, it's always so fascinating for me to talk to you, no matter what the topic is, because I find you're an artist who's so reflective about how the art is interacting with the world. And as I said already, I just have so much respect for you on how you use the art form and how you use your voice on the most important things. So I just want to thank you so much for being with me on my journey and with the Mindleaps journey, but of course being here this afternoon too, to say things that need to be said and need to be thought about and need to be acted upon. I'm just really grateful.
No, thank you. It's the same. You've given me so many opportunities, like, to, I guess, to share my voice, and to share, my beliefs, and just to share, I guess, the wealth of humanity, and what it means to be human, and what it means to really, I guess, really care about people, and the well-being and the growth of the next person, with unconditionally, with nothing in return. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Like, it gives me goosebumps right now, just like saying that phrase, because I think it's lost.
Yeah.
And it's so you've given me such a wonderful opportunity, time and time again, to do those things. So I'm very, blessed and thankful for you and your organization, and also your vision and your mission. Yeah,
But
as well.
it's been built and strengthened by so many of you that have been a part of this series on Mindleaps, but also from like our studios in Philly to our kids in Africa. Every time you guys say it, I just say it, it's a circle.
Yeah, and they are amazing, and they are so hungry. Like, it's like the word hungry just does not describe, like, the amount of effort and drive, and just how they just really want to be there, and just to absorb every single ounce of everything that you have, and they just keep coming back, more, no more, no more, no more, no more. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's a
Well, and just
beautiful
think
thing.
about what you say. Like if every new life born had the chance to grow up and be equal unconditionally, like think
Hmm.
about those kids are ready for that world, and all kids should be.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I also, and another thing is, what we had those 11 artists that come together
Yeah,
from what? From some from Kigali, some from the Congo, some from Kenya, some from
Uganda,
Uganda,
Uganda
missing
and
one.
Guinea. Salif will get
Thank
mad
you,
if
and
you
Guinea,
forget him.
right. And Guinea. And then only what? Only one person or two people was able to communicate verbally
Yeah,
out of the 11 people with everybody.
yeah,
But we were able to put together what like a 20-minute work,
yeah,
like in a very short amount of time, dealing with, Charleston and Emmanuel, and everyone's working together. Everyone's working and knew what it was about and the emotion behind it. And so and you didn't need any words. And that was what I was talking about,
right. That's
earlier
the power.
about how we as artists are able to, to make change and to actually be the catalyst for these certain things. They didn't understand half of the things I was saying, but they understood the intent and the
Yeah.
movement behind it. They could feel it, and they knew what we were after, and they just tackled it, and everyone was better for it. And so, yeah, thank you for the
Well, I
experience.
mean,
Yeah.
Royce, wherever you go, I think that that's true. Wherever you are, people are better for it, for our
Um,
interactions and our time with you. Thank you so much for
yeah,
being a
thank
part
you.
of all of this with us. And thank you for everything I know that we're going to collaborate on going forward.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, looking forward to it. Mm.
Okay, thank you to everybody for joining us for one of our most important conversations. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, talk to you
Mm.
soon, Royce.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.